We do need some theme music. We are live. This is All Things Black featuring Garland and Calvin, and we will be discussing This Is Us episodes 5 and 6, A Long Road Home being episode 5, and Birth Mother being episode 6. What's going on, sir?
Bro, I'm feeling great, man. What about yourself?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Haven't been around in a while. The insurrection thwarted us last week. They tried to take our birthday broadcast on
Right.
my actual birthday. And this is our first chance to get together all of 2021. So happy New Year. I hope you had a happy holiday, sir.
Happy New Year to you. Happy belated birthday and all.
Happy belated birthday.
Definitely it's Capricorn season. It's just
Exactly.
crazy. We should have proceeded last week because we could have talked about the couple black people that we saw in DC. But yeah, man, this is going to be a wild roller coaster ride. I was just talking to my wife this morning. It's like, yeah, you thought 2020 was something. It's like 2021 said, "Hold my beer," and they're going to show
Basically.
us that they're
Basically.
better than 2020.
Basically, we hit sitting here, and our birthdays are real close. So if anybody that we didn't plan that, but somehow the revolution is going to come at the beginning of January, and we're going to lead that revolution. But yeah, man. So they impeaching the guy again, and of course, anyone that doesn't know, impeachment is just like being charged with something. So they just approved him being charged, so they have to take it to the Senate. I think they're going to try to fast track it this time, as long as McConnell doesn't wait until like the 19th or something. They're going to try to fast track it and not go through the whole thing like they normally do. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, he's been impeached. So we'll see what happens after that. But next week at this time, we will have inaugurated a new president, a new vice president, and begin a whole new administration. So hopefully 2021 at that time will start looking up.
Hopefully, man. That's all we got to do is go from here. So we'll see. I've seen some Trump trucks driving through my area, but hopefully, things will start to return to normal. It's normal racism. We don't want all this outward racism that everybody's showing. We want you to take it back in and cover up your racism, at least for the next 4 years.
I forgot you live out there in Harford County, which is, Trump is out that month.
Bro, there's so many Trump the big like billboard size type Trump pence still up, still rocking like the election is tomorrow. So what you gonna do? I stay crazy, on the black side of the county near Edgewood. So, they ain't gonna mess with you over in Edgewood or Joppatown. That's kind of like being in West Baltimore and East Baltimore at the same time. So,
I was just about to say we got some vacancies here in the 15. So if you want to come back home, you definitely ain't got to worry about it. That's the one thing that when the election was going on, they were talking about, well, if Biden gets elected, there may be some uprisings by the white nationalists. And me and my wife, we just slept fine. We was like, yeah, they're not coming to Park Heights. So we ain't worried about that.
You straight. I just had to make sure I'm straight out here, stay on the other side of Route 40. They don't come to the Route 40 side. This is the ghetto side. They stay mostly Bel Air and West and North. And so, they don't come down this part.
All right, man. Well, let's get started. We got 2 episodes we want to talk about. It looks like we got some people here. I got a little different thing here. I think you can see I got the little comments on here, but I wear glasses. My eyes are bad, and I can't quite see.
We got Christine and Deshaun up in here.
Okay, cool. All right, man. Let's go.
Let's do it. Because it's 2 episodes, I'm not going to go. Normally I give a nice little synopsis of each of the episode, but I'm not going to do that. I don't want to take us that far back. But let's go ahead. We're going to start with the first episode because actually the Randall story kind of goes into the second episode, which it was all about. So we know we got a good cliffhanger right before the Christmas holidays. of what would happen with Randall and his mom, his mother, and finding out more about his mother. And so we'll get into that in a minute. But the first episode of the pickup after the holiday was A Long Road Home. And so there were two particular things that were happening with Kate and with Kevin. And so with Kate, we saw that, she was dealing with the adoption, her and her husband, Toby, they're trying to adopt a child. And so they're going through this process and they're trying to feel the person out. And as Kate is trying to prepare for this, she began to think back about an abortion that she had when she was 18, when she was dating that asshole Mark. And we all know Mark was an asshole. He should have got beat up in that episode and all, not locked her out the house and all that other crap. So, and so she finally shares it with Toby, and, she decides that, she needs to bring some closure. And so, she searches the internet, finds out they're not living too far from where they live, and they go to see him. And, she tries to tell Mark about what happened with the abortion and everything, but, she never did. And so, and then we look at Kevin. Kevin, he books a role. We know that he was struggling to try to get this role in this movie, and the director was being a jerk, but he did book the role. And he has to go to Vancouver to shoot the movie. But his girlfriend, Madison, who's pregnant, she is having apprehensions about him leaving and her moving there and going there with him. And, she knows that Kevin's a movie star, and this is what movie stars do. They work, and they often work out of town. But, she is kind of like leery because she wants to have the children and have at home and have this family life that may not fit the culture or the work habits that Kevin has. And so the first theme I wanted to talk about, Calvin, was bringing closure to past issues. And so we saw that with Kate about, her struggling to bring this closure. And this is also kind of a little theme about her life. She has a lot of these open-ended things that she has not really brought closure to. What do you think about that? Why is it so difficult to bring closure? Excuse me.
So I know just for me personally, you want to have the last word. Everybody wants to have the last word and be right. And a lot of times you feel like, you ever been in an argument or something, or somebody said something and you walk away, and then 20 minutes later, you'd be like, God damn it, I should have said that.
Right.
And, it's a little bit of that. But let me get to Kate real quick. I really think that I was highly now, although sometimes I think a lot of things what they do with Kate is unnecessary, and this whole Mark thing was kind of unnecessary, but I really think that Kate was absolutely wrong in this situation, and only for one reason. When you're younger, a couple months feels like forever, but as you get older, you realize a couple months is just a couple months. And she literally said to him, he was like, well, we were together for like 6 months, and she was holding on to all of that from 6 months. Like, he probably, other than the big things, he probably doesn't even remember her that well. I'd have been like, so
right, he was looking at her like, who are you, big girl?
I'd have been like, shorty, so we were in a relationship for 6 months, and I think it was 6 months. I can't remember if he said 6 or 3, but whatever it was, it wasn't years. Like, now understand that she got pregnant and she had an abortion, and I don't want to minimize that trauma, but she never even said that. She could have led with that. It said something to make him feel the impact, because if you're coming there to get it off your chest and make him feel what you were feeling, what, 6 months? Shorty, y'all were teenagers. Like, we've all had heartbreak at 6 months. Now, as soon as that episode went off, I started looking out the window, because I was like, well, shit, if Kate is doing it, I got some chicks that's going to come up here and be like, Calvin, I just want you to know that them 3 weeks that we was together, you made me feel terrible.
You traumatized me.
Exactly, man. Look, me and my wife was both kind of thinking back, like, well, wait a minute, we got anybody that's gonna come here? Because I mean, if we hold it 6 months as the bar, then well, goddamn.
Right. Yeah, man. It reminds me. I can kind of say I had something similar. Someone come back years later. It was like, yeah, I never told you this was difficult. I think sometimes closure, you just need closure for yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to go back and bring this other person into it, especially if you've already moved on in life. I know sometimes we see that therapist say, you need to go back and close that door, tell this person how you feel. And some of that might be valid. I also think that there's sometimes I need to make closure for myself. This was something that was painful for me. It was trying for me. And I got to move on. I let my spouse know. I let that significant other person in my life know. And I'm ready to just move forward. And, she always wants to make people feel sad because she feels sad. That's what I get a kick.
I also think that I think she was putting on a show for Toby, because Toby held her to task like, why are you waiting to tell me this? Why didn't you tell me this? And so she had to put on a show where, if you'd like to come with me. And then when she got there and she had to deal with him, she really didn't have anything to say. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, and I learned this when I was younger, a lot of times the best way to get back at someone is to live a great life. Because when she walked back and saw him still being an employee, getting cussed out by a millennial at a record store and still talking about these dreams, she should have just giggled and been like, you know what, never mind, and turned around. He clearly ain't nowhere near what she is, so a lot of times just living great is closure to see him, but it's enough payback right there. His life is miserable life.
Definitely. Sometimes that's the reward, Calvin, right there. It's like you see him and like, oh man, I dodged a bullet. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my Lord, I was wide open, and you see that person be like, oh, woo, I dodged a bullet on that one.
Now, I've also been on the other side, like Toby had been looking like, that's the kind of motherfucker she deal with. I'm
your man.
Toby was sitting there like, I'm a definite upgrade from this motherfucker. So she got in that car. He was like, yeah, so where you want to go, guy? Where you want to go at?
You almost jumped off a building for him?
And I know you mentioned Kevin and his relationship, and I always forget her name. Is it Madison? What is
Madison?
So we all know that Madison is crazy out of her mind. Now, maybe it's the hormones or whatever, but Kevin is an actor. He was an actor when you slept with him. He was an actor when you got pregnant. So I think it's unfair of her to go to Kevin and just say, well, I didn't know we would be traveling the world. He's doing what he can to get a nanny or whatever. I mean, they should have had that. She should have had that conversation with him, and not the conversation of, I can raise this baby alone. A lot of times people do things like that and they put their foot in their mouths. She should have had the conversation of, look, we have these babies coming. What are we going to do? And he would have said, hey, let's get a nanny to travel with us. If she said, I don't want to travel, he said, well, let me make sure that you don't have to work. You can stay home with the babies. I mean, he's literally doing everything he can to adjust his life. Now, he initially started with, I'm going to turn down the movie role. And then she's like, no, don't turn it down. And then he's like, well, let's get a nanny and we can travel. Because he's thinking, well, cool, she's cool with this lifestyle. Then she's like, well, that's not the lifestyle I wanted. Huh? we got to have these. It's the communication, it's the conversations. You got to let people know where you stand. You got to let people know what you expect. It doesn't mean you're going to agree, but when it comes to kids, you're going to have to just make a compromise. Someone's going to have to compromise, or really both people will have to compromise. I think Madison is being completely unfair, and I know a lot of women that watch This Is Us like Kevin, and they don't like Madison anyway, so they was probably in there yelling, leave her, leave the bitch, leave her.
It was kind of like she had mind control. It was like she was playing a game. But I thought about it, Calvin, in the sense of I labeled it the Hippolyta syndrome from my other show, Lovecraft. Altering your personal dreams or goals to make another person comfortable. And basically, that's what Kevin was doing. He's always had this dream. He's always had these goals. And because he wants to make it right, he's always had all these failed relationships, and he wanted to make it right. He wants to be a good dad like his dad was. He's willing to alter his personal dreams and his goals just to satisfy a quirky person. And once you start doing that, change everything whenever they want to. And it's amazing. I know someone, like marrying a preacher. All of a sudden you hate church. Well, you married a preacher and preachers preach in church, and that meant, or a pastor, that meant you're going to be there. You're going to be doing these things. And so when she, like you said, when she entered into this relationship, he's been on TV, he's been in movies. This is what actors do. And so you have to make that adjustment. And, I definitely thought it was very selfish, but I also thought Kevin he's just bending over too much, because he's trying to alter his dreams to make someone else happy. And when you get into those predicaments, those things never turn out good. Then you wind up being resentful. So I think maybe even from this, he has to, we saw at the end of the episode last night, he's rushing back to try to get to her. She's in labor, and he has an accident. So we're going to see what happens next week. I can see that character becoming resentful because, he took that chance. It didn't work out. And, he's going to be like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should have. It's definitely set up for at least another 2 seasons of Kevin being mad.
I think one of the reasons he may be bending over is when they showed the flashback of him with his true love, that teenage girl that was there from season 1 or 2. He just all of a sudden made the decision with the assumption that I'm going to go be a star and she'll be fine and all. And even Randall told him, you shouldn't do that. You should be home with her. And we see what happened with that. Kevin has been chasing her forever. So I think he didn't want to make that same mistake. So, maybe he's thinking about that also. But he is a star now. And on the other end of that, if he does leave acting and he does decide, I'm going to leave the acting so we don't have to travel, I'm going to be a salesman or something. When that money gets tight, and she's going to be looking at him like, so you supposed to be a man and you can't even make ends meet around here? Like,
where your commercial money at?
Exactly. Like, well, when I was making the money, like, so yeah, he's put himself, because I don't think he's actually in it, but I think he's put himself in a no-win situation right now. And he's going to have to try to figure that out. And as you mentioned, we do see that, another effect of that is him rushing home from Vancouver, and we definitely see the accident. One of the good things is we know that he does survive, because they have shown future episodes with him being much older and the kid. So we know he's not going to die, but we definitely want to see what happens with him.
Definitely. Now, we also pick up on the long road home, Randall. Now, Randall, he's contacted by the mysterious Asian man. We saw that in the cliffhanger before the holidays. It was this Asian man got a picture with Randall's mother, Laura. So he's contacted by the Asian man, Hai Ling, and Hai Ling sends him a note that says, hey, I know your mother. I was good friends with her, and I was close with her all the way up to her death. And so Randall decides to go ahead and give him a call, and they talk briefly on the phone. And he lives in New Orleans, and so he decides to go down there and learn more about his mother. But it does bring up something that's kind of a little sore point for Randall, and I think it also ties into what we're going to talk about his mother, in terms of questioning if his father lied to him, because we know that his father told him that his mother died at childbirth. And it appears that that was true, but we learned last night that it wasn't totally true. And we learned that in the cliffhanger episode back in December as well, that she came back out of the overdose. And so, you know, this theme that Randall, and I know this is part of his mental health challenge, is that, you know, finding the connection to family. Who am I? You know, what makes up me? You know, yes, I had this great man and woman who stepped into my life and raised me as one of their own. But, you know, he was raised as a Black man. I am a Black man, and I don't have this connection to what makes my past. I really don't know anything about it. And so I thought, going into last night's episode, which I thought was excellent. Now I see why everybody's always crying when they're watching This Is Us. I thought that the writing.
I ain't crying, bro.
You didn't cry? I mean, either. I had a little. No. My eyes was like, my allergies have been acting up lately, and I had my little red on the outside. But anyway, and so I thought that the writing, it really captured to me the dynamics of a Black family, and, you know, parents, children, your goals and aspirations for your children, how they have to kind of stake out and live their life, and, you know, those particular things. So let me give a little synopsis. You know, Randall learns the backstory of his mother, Laurel. She's from a Black middle-class family in New Orleans with a domineering father. She had a brother named Jackson who died in the Vietnam War, and her paternal aunt, May, who she was very close to. And this pain of losing her brother in the Vietnam War really shook her. And so as she's growing, she meets Hai Ling. Hai Ling, they meet at the local farmer's market. As a matter of fact, he saw her swimming in the lake and thought she was drowning. So he jumps in the lake and does to save her. And, you know, they become friends at first, and then eventually they become lovers. And so as their relationship continues to grow, her father, who has another young man in mind for her, is going to force her into a marriage, and she decides to leave home. But Hai decides to stay for his family. He's from Vietnam. He came over as one of the Vietnamese refugees with his family. And so he decided that he would stay and help support his family. And so we know that Laurel eventually ended up in Pittsburgh, and she wound up dating Randall's father. They had the child and everything. But after Laurel wakes up from the overdose, they come to the hospital. They eventually arrest her, and she goes to prison for 5 years for drug possession after having Randall. And because the prisons in Pittsburgh must have had a lot of overcrowding there, they send her all the way to California to serve her sentence.
She caught a federal charge or something?
That's what I'm saying. Was she guiding or something? For just using some heroin?
I mean, that
they sent her.
I heard federal charges, they send you out of town. I don't know. I heard for federal charges, you don't stick.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. I don't know. But yeah, they sent her all the way to California. And so she was released in 1985, and she decided to go back to New Orleans, and she stayed with her aunt where she lived the rest of her life. And then eventually Hai reunite. Hai has a wife by that time and some children when Laurel returned, but they eventually reconnect, and he supports her through her final 2 years of living with cancer. And so one of the things that I saw, Calvin, was, you know, Randall resolving the hurt of not having a family connection or not knowing who he is. You know, I think we deal with that particularly in the Black community because the absence of fathers. children growing up with in fatherless homes. Um, as a person who grew up without his father in his home, there is a hole in your heart for something that you don't know. It's hard when people come up to you and say, you look just like your father, or you do stuff like your father, or your mother looks at you and says, that's something your father would do. But you don't have no connection to it. You don't understand it. You don't understand, the people who you were born out of. And, I think that definitely was Randall's struggle in having this opportunity to resolve that hurt of not having a family connection, helps him, release some things.
Yeah, I really think that This Is Us captures so much of the Black experience, but one of the things they're very good at also is capturing life experience. As Black people, we definitely, when it comes to our families and family trees, things like ancestry.com, we always feel like, we're not going to really get a true history of our ancestors because we were born from slaves. Randall, who had a family, a grandfather, and a whole lineage that I said was probably the most prominent family in the town. Randall will never get to speak to them. It would have been amazing for him to actually have talked to his grandfather, and you saw their house. It looked like they were living in a mansion. He would have actually been able to speak to his grandfather and his grandmother and find out the history of the family. And that's something he's going to miss out on because of the ills of the world, because of the drugs, or because of the fact that she had to leave town because she didn't want this arranged marriage. So it all snowballed. I, I actually now I'm going to tell you, when we get a little further into this, I think that This Is Us slightly dropped the ball, just slightly, not too much. I think they slightly dropped the ball, and I'll tell you a little more why when we get towards the end of it. But I actually thought this was a great story. You know, when you watch TV shows, a lot of times they you may get to laughing, and if they're a half hour or even if they're an hour, it feels like that they may have only been on 10 or 15 minutes. This Is Us always finds a way within that first 10 or 15 minutes to make you feel like you've been watching an entire movie and you get an intermission. They pack so many good things into this. Not only do you get to learn about Randall's mother and her family, but you bring actress Kalita Smith, you bring Chi McBride, and you bring people that we see. You bring, if you watch Grey's Anatomy, Maggie's boyfriend, who's in there, supposed to marry Laurel. Just the whole scenery, the clothing, the farmers market, and just I actually have never been to New Orleans, but it felt like I was there just from the scenery, the lake, the market. It's just such a great show. And everything they do is real purposeful and real poignant. So the father was a preacher, and every time it felt like he was loving his daughter, there was another command. He come sit next to me. He asked me if he could marry you, and I said yes. And so you're thinking he's going to say, but I understand you might be in love with some. He's like, no, you're going to say yes. Like, whoa, where'd that come from? He brought her in to take her down. Her brother, they could have easily just said, the brother and sister are going at it. But her brother was her rock. Her brother and her aunt, they were her rock. So she had a foundation and she had a family. But because she had to run away, she ran away to the drugs. Now, I don't think we ever found out if she was introduced for drugs from William or if she was on drugs prior to William. Maybe that's something that we'll never know. But I really enjoyed the story, and you're absolutely right. it's a lot of things that Black people struggle with, knowing where you come from. We always want to, especially in the age of now where Blackness is starting to be on even a bigger display than it was when we were back in like the late 90s and early 2000s. Blackness is definitely on display. So everyone wants to know where they came from and want to be able to connect with ancestry. And we all want to be able to say things like we were from a prominent family, or we were from civil rights leaders, or we all want to say that.
Right. You know, it's funny. People on the chat box, they saying it's guaranteed that Randall's grandfather had a child on the side.
That's what I was
That's what I was
thinking.
thinking at first, because I was thinking maybe Laurel and the aunt, because he didn't want her to be with the aunt. At first, I was like, well, maybe he and the aunt had the baby, but then she was like, well, no, that's your brother. Then I was like, okay,
Right.
wipe that off the table. And then when the aunt was talking about her little, her fling out there with the married man and whatever, I thought maybe Laurel was her child, and the she had to give up the child to the older sibling, and the older sibling raised it. But that kind of raised for me
Well,
as well, because
but
that's what happens in Black families. I know a whole bunch of people who was raised by their aunt that they thought was their mother.
you
And the
also
woman that's
remember,
their sister was their mother.
and you also remember he said, let me get up, I gotta go to the church. And she was like, oh, I gotta go to work. And she was like, on a Sunday after, he was like, what did we say having the kids said? Then she was like, let me go to bed. Basically, like, you know what? I'm
Right.
not for the bullshit tonight. Let me go ahead and go to bed.
Right.
But you know what? I never even thought that her aunt could be her mother. I never even thought that.
Yeah, because
And
in the first scene where she's walking up in the field behind the aunt was like, oh, I knew you was there, because you just like me.
yeah,
There's people who jump right in, and then there's people who do by caution, and you just like me, you jump right in. And so I'm thinking like, okay, maybe that's the connection. Maybe Aunt May is
yeah,
a mother, but kind of turned out. And yeah, I kind of thought when Dad was tipping out, it kind of reminded me of East Bayou, like when the Samuel L. Jackson character, he was going to make house calls on Sunday as well, going to visit the sick. And so, I guess that's what you got to do.
oh,
One of the
and shout out to her aunt, and I always forget her name.
Lisa Gay
She did,
Hamilton.
yes, and she's also plays the baby mother on Law and Order to Ice-T, Detective Tootsie Rollo, because I don't know how to say his name on there, so I just call him Officer Tootsie Rollo, and that's his baby mother on there. And remember,
Really?
Ludacris was one of the sons, and he was crazy in there. If you ever watch Law and Order, watch the episodes with
Oh my
Ludacris. They are
God.
some of the best ones.
I'm gonna have to go find that on
And that's
demand. I'm not a
SVU.
Law and Order person.
That's Law and Order
SVU?
SVU. Yeah, the one that's
Okay.
been on 100,000 years.
Right. That's like, that's going to be in reruns forever.
Yes.
One of the other things too, Calvin, that you mentioned when she left, and eventually her life led to being addicted to drugs and then to prison. It also showed me that a theme of we have to experience life, the good and the bad, in order to grow. Maybe if she stayed at home under the hand of her father in the house of her parents, maybe she never gets that life experience. Shame, it was rough that she had to go through it that hard. But life has a way of helping us grow, and we have to experience the good with the bad, and in order to grow. And you could tell that in her reflection when Laurel came back home to her aunt, that she had to have this experience of when I left, I was on my way up, and then I met a man that loved me. I had this child, but I was addicted to drugs. I don't know where that child is. I eventually end up in prison. Then I'm back here. There were bigger plans for me, but I had to live the path of life that I was called to live.
Yeah, man. Oh, and real quick, I saw someone said she was in the practice. I actually used to watch the practice. That was a
Yes,
great
she was on
show.
practice as
Also,
well.
just someone also said they loved how Randall just was like, all that love story and shit is good, but why didn't my mama try to find me?
Right.
I did
Randall
like
said,
that too.
"This ain't the Notebook,
Yeah,
nigga."
Randall cut that shit off. What's her name? Beth was like, yeah, this is kind of like the Notebook. How was
Right.
like, this is not the Notebook.
Yeah.
I got his Miyagi though on that. This
How
is
do you say?
the
Hashitachi, this is not the Notebook.
we we not doing racism in the 21.
That's not racist.
You said Hashitachi.
That's stereotypical. It's not racist. I ain't say kill all chinks. I just had
Wow.
a.
So anyway. But yeah, man. You
That
definitely.
was a joke. That was not. Do not kill Asians, please. Do not call them chinks either.
But yeah, you're definitely right. Again, This Is Us always hits the mark on things like that. She definitely had to go out and live life. Number one, if she doesn't go out and live life, we don't have Randall. That's number one. But she definitely should go out and experience everything. And one of the reasons she's probably, of course she's running, but her brother never got to experience life. He went off to
Sure.
the war and died in the war, so she may have been living for him also. We clearly don't know, but her foundation, other than her aunt, her ace boon being her brother, was gone, so she really didn't have anything else to hold her there. I didn't want to leave, but you see, that didn't stop either, because she did not want to marry that guy and be stuck with him forever.
Yeah, and she was about to get the karate chop from High's wife. High wife pregnant. She ain't playing. High wife probably like, why you keep on waving at that sister over there?
See, now you wrong, because again, This Is Us hits the mark. They did not have any infidelity. He literally said it was decades before we
Yeah,
ever got
but
together. They
he
even
was
had to
thinking
ask
about it.
him.
He was thinking about it when High was in that bathroom, locked in the bathroom by herself. He was thinking about Laurel. You think about that brown sugar that he had once.
Listen, I doubt if High was pounding his rice cake for in the bathroom because of Laura. He might have been, but I'm not going to sit there and claim that This Is Us.
High said he in his heart. Did you see one time they was looking at each other? High, they were like, High was like, he would look at it and be like, you the best. You the best I ever. High was like, you best, baby, you the best.
I was laughing when Laura came back and the guy was like, "Yeah, let me give you a quarter so you can smile." And she was just like, "Listen, nigga, do you want these onions or not? You want this shit or not?" And she was like, he right. You don't never smile. She seen High and she was like, "Hey, High. Hey, big head. Hey, big head." She was
Oh
like,
man, he was
"Hey."
definitely like, she's like Laurel. He was like, hi. She's like, oh yeah, hi, how you doing?
Well,
Like, no trick. My name is High.
when she came back and she hollering, "Hey, High," he was like, "Hi ho." Hey man, stop talking about my man High. My man High had the key.
High is honorable, and he gave up the property. Come on, man. I'm sorry, I put in this work. Yeah,
High's a good guy. High's a good guy.
High's a good guy.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, and this is going to kind of lead us into the end. It's when Laurel finally gets her release as she's about to pass away, and then I know the sisters went crazy when they saw Randall go up into the lake. If this was HBO, you probably would have saw all the butt crack, but since it's regular network TV, you didn't get to see those chocolate buns going into the water. But I learned a quote. I have a friend who's a Buddhist, and he taught me this quote: "Holding on to pain is like planting a dead tree." And we saw that really with Laurel and with Randall. They're holding on to this pain. Laurel holding on to the pain of losing her son, losing a life that could have been well lived with William and with Randall. And we saw Randall really holding this pain of, hey, did my father really tell me the truth? And, I'm different from these two other children that I was raised with, and working his way through those issues and, self-esteem and confidence, and to the point of being able to release his pain once he goes into the lake. And, I thought that was very significant, that a lot of times we're holding on to pain, we're holding on to hate, and holding on to those things is like holding on to something that's dead. We're trying to, hold on to it, but it's dead. And a lot of times we need to discard those dead things so we can start living again.
Yeah. Someone asked if we're sponsoring a trip to the lake so we can take turns screaming. I mean, listen,
right.
We be screaming all day, but we can actually go to Minnesota and go to Lake Minnetonka. We can purify ourselves in the water.
Like to purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka.
Wait, that ain't Lake.
Why you take your clothes off for a guy that talks like that?
Hold on.
He ain't had no hit records either.
Hold on, I was like 11 or 12. Apollonia could take her clothes off anybody she wanted to. I wasn't complaining. Yeah, we do. We actually, all of us do hold on to a lot. And even right now, if we think about this pandemic and what's going on in politics, and we're holding on to a lot now. And we laughing at the trip to the lake, but going out and screaming would definitely be something that people maybe want to do or should do. But this is where I say that I think this is a slightly drop the ball. Now, I definitely don't know, but it seems like, Randall had just started counseling. And we always talk about mental health and that Black people shouldn't be afraid to go to therapy and seek some levelness in their lives, levity in their lives. It felt like in this episode, Randall going in that lake screaming may have resolved all of his problems. This is us kind of let Randall off the hook from therapy. Now, maybe he will continue therapy in the later episodes, and I hope he does, because what I don't want to see is screaming in a lake is something that's going to solve all of your problems, because they made it seem like he may not need therapy any longer, and maybe he doesn't, but I don't like that narrative that the therapy wasn't what he needed. It was going home and screaming in the lake. I just don't like that narrative. And I say slightly because, again, I don't know if he's going to continue therapy, and also because this is a TV show and it definitely fits in the theme of the TV show, but I would have liked for him to continue therapy ongoing, so hopefully he will, but that's why I say they may have slightly dropped the ball. Hopefully not.
Well, I'll get you to let's take another, let's flip and I'll take another look at it. I think him being able to, like in the instance, okay, he had the scream, he listened to the spirits of saying, hey, you got to release this, and him saying I don't know how, and her telling him, what's inside of him, you have the tool inside of you to let it go and to move on. And so as they're riding, back from the trip and they call up Kevin, I think him recognizing that he needed to let go of that pain, maybe that's the part of therapy that's helping him. And so, I hope he keeps with it too, because I think he probably only recognizes that through the therapeutic help that he was getting, to be able to say, okay, I let that go. Now I need to move on to the next thing that I know is hindering me, and work on that too.
I hope so.
A lot of times when we go through therapy, we think, okay, because I solved the one issue that I came here for, I agree with you. Let's not work on those other issues too. Let's
right. That's
the one thing I needed the one hurdle I needed to leap
right.
over.
I don't want it. I don't want it to just be a line in the story. I want it to be something ongoing for him, because he still has that issue with his mom that he feels like he always needs to take control. The therapist brought that up, and that was the female therapist that brought that up, not the male. The male therapist was the one that talked about him needing to find out about his history with his mom when he wasn't going to do it. So, but I definitely want him to continue therapy. So hopefully.
We'll see. As a matter of fact, Glenda's on here. Glenda sounds like she wants some egg rolls with Kung Pao rice, because she said that Hai was very cute. He was a fine Asian man. So it sounds like Glenda is into cross-cultural relationships. Glenda, I didn't know that.
Clearly Glenda likes trout, because Hai was definitely slinging a lot of trout in the episode.
Wrapping it up in paper. And so as the episode ends, we see, Kevin driving off, trying to get to Madison. She's in labor. She's in the hospital. He's in Vancouver. And so we're going to pick up next week with what happens with Kevin, and we see the little review, as Calvin say, he's not dead, but we did see the wallet on the side of the road and the SUV up in the woods with the windows busted out in an accident. So, we'll pick up with that. But, overall, I just thought it was a great episode. I just really loved the whole backstory. I love the way that Us gives you, like you say, Calvin, they give you a good meaty backstory where, like, for instance, Laurel started with her being a kind of like a preteen. We jump to the teen years, and then all of a sudden she's a full adult. And so, and they capture all of that. And, I really didn't have any missing parts for me in her story. And it, kind of puts a nice, neat bow on his parents. And so I'm definitely eager to see where his storyline goes now. I guess we're starting him and Kevin work through their issues, and, Randall's storyline going to go, but we'll see.
Well, they always set up to continue the storylines when you think that there could be nothing else. So now Randall and his family, they have this whole house down in New Orleans off a lake, and they were talking like, we might want to move down here. So, Randall might leave his political aspirations and move down there. But can we give, and we're going to probably do this every time we talk about this, can we give another shout out to Beth? That character is just the best on the show. She evens him out. She brings the comedy. She is just amazing on the show. Like, every time she says something, you just look at her and you just laugh. She's the one that brings it out in the show. They definitely picked the perfect actress for that part, because she seems just like a natural smart ass, you know what I mean? But she's not always trying to be smart. So it give a shout out to Beth, because I think Beth is definitely needed in the show, and I'm glad that they actually did her story at one point also. But yeah, definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen with Kevin. The way they do their stories, it's going to be the same timeline as when Randall was in New Orleans trying to find out his past. So, and I'm sure we'll see Kate after that. But yeah, definitely love the way they do everything on This Is Us. This was one of the best episodes. Even the episode before that, I did like the episode before that, but this is one of the best episodes that they had. Maybe it was because it was about the Black people, but it's definitely one of the best episodes that they've had.
Yeah, and Deshaun let us know that also Sterling K. Brown, he just got a endorsement with chapstick for his lips and all. And so if you were wondering about his lips last night, he has a endorsement deal with chapstick.
So we're not going to keep doing it. Y'all are so rude, man. Y'all are so rude.
I gotta say with the listeners, that's what he said. I want to support my listeners.
I'm not. I like Randall, so I'm not gonna slander his lips. And first of all, I'm not even gonna talk about his lips. That's we not talk about this.
He's in a good movie that both like, that we like the first part of, Waves. Waves is a good
He is
movie.
in
Just
Waves.
the first hour of Waves is good, not the other
Yeah,
two.
yeah. The other
first hour.
17 hours of Wave, because I
Yeah.
don't. And Waves is
just the
on
first
Showtime.
hour.
Yeah, it's on Showtime. If you ever get a chance to watch it, just be prepared after the first hour that thing is going to keep what you think is going to happen happens, but then something else continues to happen. Like it's just like, wait, what? Why do we need more of this? So
Right, it goes somewhere. You got that Wakanda. Baba, Baba, tell me about the homeland. All right, let's get on.
Yeah, man, because y'all, y'all going back to racism. Why Wakanda got to be Baba?
That's what he said in the opening of the movie, Calvin. He said, Baba, tell me about the homeland.
Speaking of Black Panther, they did come out and say that when they bring out Black Panther 2, there will be no CGI of Chadwick Boseman. So they're not doing CGI of Chadwick. So maybe they're going to do pictures and some flashbacks, but it'll be a completely different story. I'm assuming maybe a new Wakanda, maybe a new Black Panther.
Linda to say he got the Wakanda lip, but yeah. If you want to see a good, he's great in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. If you are a fan of August Wilson plays, I admonish you to please watch it. I mean, you can't go wrong with anything that August Wilson has done. Fences, Ma Rainey, Piano Lesson, all those great stories and all. And so, yeah, definitely check it out on Netflix.
And just know that they are plays that have been adapted for the screen, because a lot of times with the wording, especially with Fences, when you watch it for the first time, you look at it and you're kind of like, this isn't kind of flowing, but they're actually plays that have been adapted for the screen. They haven't been remade for the screen. They've been adapted to the screen. So just know that the way they talk, the way they act, some of the things in there are a little different. The cadence is a little different than what you would normally see in the film. But it's great. It's a great film. I actually liked it. I actually thought, I actually thought Viola Davis was amazing in that. I thought she was amazing in that. So, but anyway, yeah, man. Oh, look, someone said, I hope we'll suggest Queen Sugar when it comes back. I meant to tell Garland, the show Snowfall is coming back in February. I don't know if you...
I'm a fan of Snowfall.
Yeah, Snowfall is coming back in February. So we're going to have to see what we're going to do. So we need to get to talking anyway, because we got to figure out some things. So I'll probably hit you tomorrow and we'll talk about some things. But anyway, everyone, we want to thank you for joining us. Again, this is All Things Black with Garland and Calvin. We will definitely be back next Wednesday to talk about episode 7 of This Is Us. And of course, that's going to be, looks like it's going to be about Kevin. So we will see you all then. Thanks again for joining. Stay safe out here. It's 2021. Go reach for all your goals. Thanks for sticking with us again for another year. Hey, Garland, good to see you, bro. We will be talking tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Right. See y'all later.